Well, we are at 50. We're over 50. We have sound. Someone will have to chime in and let me know. If we don't, then we know that we've got what we call gremlins in the studio. But it is Easter Sunday, as several people have pointed out to me already. And it's a beautiful day here in Michigan. I have 60 degrees right outside right now. And just wondering. I always feel bad. It looks like there's a conversation going on here and people didn't notice I stepped into the room. Dennis Berman, hey, Stephen, all Dallas here, warm and overcast. Yeah, no, it's sunny and blue skies here and 60-ish. Ram 50 V8, good afternoon, Steve Lehto. 55 Sadal, happy Easter. Thank you for the stream. And John Ellis says, hey, Steve, was watching your Disney video. Yeah, that one went up this morning. It's causing some consternation because I mentioned COVID. Julio Rodriguez, a.k.a. Hurad, happy Easter, everyone. Dixie Champagne, OMG, say something. Well, I did. Nobody responded. Mr. Phil, 1969, hello, Steve. Achilles' Last Stand, happy Easter, everyone. And Brandon Bradshaw says, happy Easter, Steve, from Battle Creek, the cereal town. Cereal town, Battle Creek, Michigan, home of, I believe, Kellogg's and the other one. I think at one point when they worked together, they had a falling out and competed with each other. When I was a little kid, I remember going on a field trip to a cereal factory. It may have been my school, or I may have actually accompanied my brother. I think I was too little. And my mom was one of the chaperones. She dragged me along. I remember going to a big factory going, wow, they make cereal here. Wow. John Ellis, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, I got 60 F here, 60. Graham Mills, bright and sunny in London, a bit chilly but nice outside. Are you talking about London over there with the Big Ben and all that? This is also London, Ontario. Dwayne Buck, good morning, Steve, from overcast Spokane, Washington. Stephen Shaw says, Steve, this is a perfect Viper day. It would be, except I'm doing a live stream. I actually was sitting around this morning and it was so nice that I go, you know something, it's I don't normally go for bike rides in the morning because I did a Peloton this morning when it was dark out. I jumped on my bike, went for a bike ride, and I'm out on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, and I see a car coming. It's like a 68 Corvette convertible. And the guy's driving down a dirt road. And it's just two, I don't know, it was a father, son, or two guys just having a good old time. They waved. And I did a loop and I went around this way. And they went to the loop and we passed each other again. Hey, how's it going? You know, so sometimes good days like that bring everybody out. Graham Mills, yep, UK, London. Daniel Kester, it's 56 degrees here. Jeff Scott, happy Easter from sunny Southern California where it never rains. Ardo Hilton, it is sunny in Alicante, Spain. Okay. Cotaxista says it's 294 Kelvin, which is 69 F, and cloudy in Denver, Colorado. And I know that you don't say degrees in Kelvin for some odd reason. You have to say 294 Kelvin. I'm learning these things. Someday I'll know everything right about when I pass away. And I think that's what some people think about enlightenment. You achieve that right as you die because that's the most you could know, probably. Alexander Steele says 4 things. 1, the Sisu plate is interesting. Seems finished. Yes, it is. 2, have you had any Datsun lemon walk cars? Datsun? You mean in the old days, Datsun? Because didn't Datsun become Nissan? It's 80F in my small southern Ohio town, and happy Easter. Well, I hear you, my friend. No, I mean, I forgot what year Datsun stopped marketing in America as Datsun. I mean, I remember the Datsuns, you know, and neat little cars, but never actually handled a case involving a lemon Datsun. So, Achilles' Last Stand. Steve, when are you going to fire up the Viper and ride through Podunk, Michigan? Is there actually a place called Podunk, Michigan? See, I don't know if I'm just really naive here because that's not one I've ever heard. Well, there's a place called Podunk in Sage Township, Michigan. Another Podunk in Rutland Charter Township, Michigan. And a Podunk Lake not far from that. And another Podunk Lake in Bridgewater Township. But I've never heard of these Podunks And I'm looking at a map and it doesn't show anything there. I think those are more place names than anything else. But I've driven all over the place in my Viper. I've brought it up the Upper Peninsula to Copper Harbor, up and around the Thumb. And I've also driven it up to Petoskey, up and through the Tunnel of Trees. So I'll get it out and do some long drives with it. So far this year, just short drives in and around town, that kind of thing. I've run a couple tanks of gas through it. That's about it. D. Wood, hi, Steve. Happy Easter. Thanks again for the info the other day. Home 62 benefits. Good morning, everyone. Brandon Bradshaw says Battle Creek is podunk, as well as Climax, Litchfield, and Teconcha. Well, yeah, we're just going to use it as a nickname for a small town. Battle Creek's a pretty big town, though, compared to some other towns in Michigan. Climax, of course, is a little smaller than Battle Creek. And I've mentioned before Eau Claire, or Eau Claire, as the locals call it, which is over on that southwest corner of the state. And then Bob Blah Blah points out that the 240 and the 280 were Datsun, and then the 300 became Nissan. So yeah, I mean, remember we've been through this before. The Datsun was the B210. My chemistry teacher had one in junior high, and we mocked him endlessly. And he'd say, "Yeah, but it gets 50 miles to a gallon." And we're like, yeah, but still, look at it. It'd be more dignified to roll around town in a shopping cart. And Betty Boop had a Datsun B210. Great, reliable car. Yeah, you have to think like an 8th grader, though, when your chemistry teacher drives a Datsun B210. So, Doug Jones out washing the cars. Be a good day for it. Analog designer Jay Hello from San Clemente, California, 74 degrees and sunny. Willie Harrell says, nice day to walk my parrot outside. Take your parrot for a walk, or you walk around with a parrot like on your shoulder, like pirate style? It's me, Steve. Can you help me with a lemon law claim on my Yugo? Wasn't that what we call assumption of the risk if you bought a Yugo? Didn't you know it was pretty much going to be a lemon? Yeah. Now, Yugos get the rap, of course, of just being a really, really inexpensive and lower quality car. They don't quite have the same following as some other cars that came and went, but they have a warm spot. We have a warm spot for them right here. Retired Butcher Boy, did you get your second vaccination? No, I'll get my second vaccination not this week, but next week. So I've got one, but not the other. Road Wrench, what kind of mileage does the Viper get? I've never done a long-standing study on it. I did pay attention to it on one of my road trips where I went through several tanks of gas very, very quickly, and it was getting 20-ish, 20 miles to a gallon or so. But that was driving on the freeway at 1,600 RPM at 80 miles an hour for hour after hour after hour, which is it's barely just jogging at that speed. I can assure you that driving around town the way that I drive, I never speed. I just see how fast I can get to the speed right below the speed limit and then hold it there. The mileage is not that good. So, but you don't buy a Viper for its, trying to go high mileage or hyper mileaging with it. So, Madame Lestrange, happy Easter, 52 and sunny in Massachusetts. Doug Jones, Viper passes everything but a gas station, pretty much. Sledge and Wedge is 10 gallons to the mile. Hey, don't laugh. There are some military vehicles that happens to. Dave Beto says that Yugos had a rear windshield heater, which helped keep the hands warm of the people who were pushing it. That's pretty good. Josu Vagila, and I could be mispronouncing it, don't know if the L's are silent or not, says hello, and I appreciate that. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Anytime I see a new name, I like to call them out. Nathan versus everything. Parrots are odd creatures. They like to ride and walk. I had parakeets that would rather hang out on my shirt collar than fly. Can you imagine that? You have the ability to fly, but you choose not to. MD Hofsty says, sunny in the home of Gerald R. Ford. Is that Grand Rapids, I assume? I always know they say he's from Grand Rapids. I wasn't sure if he's from Grand Rapids proper or from someplace near Grand Rapids. I was flipping around the TV the other day, and I saw something that caused me to look it up. Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh, was born in Detroit, and he didn't grow up here. Apparently, the family moved out shortly thereafter. And so I went to do some research to find out where he was, where the family home was. And the sad part is the family home appears to be just off of the lodge on the west side, down towards like Wayne State University. But the house is gone now, and they knocked it down and put up an apartment complex. And so I was kind of surprised by that. And then I found an article where they complained and said, somebody said, maybe we should save this. This is Charles Lindbergh's childhood home. And they said, and they just knocked it down. So one of these days I might drive down there and take a look at it. Gary Weisenberger, didn't the Yugo go off the bridge? Yes, a Yugo went off the Mackinac Bridge, and also so did, I believe, a Chevy Blazer. I could be wrong on the second one, but the second one was a larger vehicle. But a Yugo got blown off the Mackinac Bridge under a very, very high wind situation. And that's one of the things about a car that small. There was design criteria for cars like Pintos and Vegas and so on, where they're trying to get the car to be like, say, 2,000 pounds and $2,000. People are like, what a great idea. Well, there are some disadvantages to cars that light because while on the one hand, a heavier car takes more gasoline to get it going down the road, in theory, a lighter car, to make it light, you got to remove stuff from it structurally, but also crossing a bridge, you might get blown over the side, which isn't good. So Duncan Campbell. Hello, Steve from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for checking in, my friend. I know there it's probably Monday afternoon or something. Yugoslav Arvai, happy Easter, everyone from Serbia. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Yugoslav Arvai from Serbia. See, I can't touch the screen. That's what made me, I think, lose the microphone last time. Science Girl, hello, everybody. Hello, Science Girl. Thank you for checking in. John Ellis says, one of my friends totaled a Tesla Model X and after being hit at high speed, walked away uninjured and wrote in a comment section, great car, will crash again. Oh. Stephen Shaw, back in the day, students carried a teacher's Austin Mini up the stairs to the second floor and left it there. I remember stuff like that. I remember a kid at my school having a Volkswagen. A bunch of us picked it up and turned it sideways in a parking space. But the old Minis, back in the old days, they had tires like this big. I mean, you'd walk by and go like, what? How's that legal? Oh, boy. Duncan Campbell, Monday, 3 a.m. Oh, so it's still early, I guess. Okay. Daniel Kester, I've seen semis blown over in high winds, but not over the side of a bridge. Oh, yeah. If you look at a semi and you just realize that down the side of it is just a big sail, basically, and a wind coming directly at that could cause a lot of force pushing it that way. So it's a whole different world driving a vehicle like that. Hey, Steve Salem, if I believe you sent me a note, and I apologize. I meant to get back to you, and I will this afternoon. I sold a car to Vroom. They picked the car up and canceled the sale 2 weeks ago. They still have my car. That didn't happen in Michigan, but I'll shoot you a note because you need to contact a local attorney because if they canceled the sale, they need to return your car ASAP. And the fact they haven't done that is a problem. Now, in Michigan, I would sue them for conversion, theft, and a bunch of other stuff, and I get their attention really, really quickly doing that. But I forgot what state you're in. Is it New York, someplace back east? But you're going to need to contact a local attorney to look into that and jump on it pretty quickly. So. Ed G, my dad had a Dodge Omni. I remember the wind blowing us over 2 lanes. The Dodge Omni was one of those little cars. There was a push, especially by Chrysler, where they didn't really have anything in the pipeline to compete with like the Vega and the Pinto. They very quickly just ran out and basically got other companies' cars or other designers, and they put a bunch of junk on the road. And the Omni was one such car. And just a really, really lightweight car with a tiny little engine. You could buy it really, really cheaply. And, they weren't designed to last for very long, and I also know people who had Chevettes, a Chevette, and a Chevette was basically an enclosed shopping cart, so. Word Dunlap, we went to move our teacher's VW and the bumper fell off. That's an embarrassing and possibly troubling situation, because you go over there and you get 3 or 4 guys and you start picking it up and a part comes off. Now suddenly it's not so funny. Do you put it back on, or do you run away? What do you do? ZKR99 says the Shelby Omni was hilarious. There was a time, sadly, when Carroll Shelby would sign his name to anything, and they would put out a Shelby version of something. So it'd be some car that Chrysler had, like the Omni or something, and it puts out like 24 horsepower. And the Shelby version's got like an intercooler and puts out 25. But it's got like really cool decals and stuff, Mike Garrett's a Plymouth Horizon. Another one of those vehicles from that time. Sledge and Wedge, this Ford Explorer tag could be SL8TO for Lehto. That's interesting because somebody does have Lehto. I looked it up, Lehto. Someone's got that. And I'd never looked up spelling it with an 8. Interesting concept. 55 Sedell, how tough is defamation to prove? It depends on if you are a public figure or not. If you're a public figure, it's very, very difficult not to prove it, but to get liability on it, because they're going to say, hey, look, if you're a public figure, you got to be able to withstand a certain amount of criticism and so on. But if someone makes false statements about you, and you can prove they were false, and you can prove they made the statements and you were harmed by them, then that's how you prove defamation, whether it's libel or slander, is simply whether it's spoken or written. But it varies from state to state. There's certain things you can do, like in Michigan, if somebody is libeled you or slandered you, you can send them a notification that says, I demand you retract that, and if you don't, I'm coming after you. And people will often respond to that and do the retraction, because if they don't and they get sued, then they get punitive damages and attorney fees and court costs. And so most people go, you know something? Instead of just getting in a little insult fight here, I'll retract it. So, but that depends on the state you are in. Leo the Nomad, did you see the update to the penny story? Yes, I did. In fact, I posted an update in the description of the video. I know a lot of people who are on handhelds don't spot the descriptions, but there was a time when I did the story about the pennies, which was the April 1st, April Fool's video, and about the guy who got paid his last paycheck in pennies. Coinstar came along and volunteered to take the pennies and clean them up and dispose of them on their own, is cut the guy a check. And I think that he actually overpaid him as part of this. And so I did post a link to that story and stuck it in the description of the video. So anybody who sees the video today should see that update as well. And it was very nice of Coinstar to do that. They didn't have to do it, but Coinstar, of course, everyone knows they're the people who take care of your change problems. So it was good for them to step in and do that. Sunset One. Hello, Steve. I feel like you're a long-lost friend. Love your videos. Mark Chicky, a.k.a. Sunset One, Sunny, and some words I can't repeat here. Happy Easter. Oh, thank you. If I'm a long-lost friend, you found me now. So there you go. Stephanie Fritch, I'm a single living alone with a disability, poverty, and SSDI. Easter is just a reminder that my life sucks. Well, I apologize for that. And the reason I say that is that Easter, I titled this video, Happy Easter. You'll notice that I'm not in church right now. I'm here. Okay. So I know that's obvious, but I'm saying that for a reason. I had somebody ask me if I wanted to go out to Easter dinner today with a family of people. Being vague on purpose. And I said, no, I've got a lot of stuff to do today. And they said, what do you have to do? It's a Sunday. And I said, well, among other things, my live stream. They said, you do your live stream on holidays? I said, I do my live stream every Sunday, unless there's something catastrophic or I'm out of town. I do my live streams. And so, Stephanie, I am doing my live stream specifically to talk to you and our other closest 351 friends. And that number should be higher, but it's Easter. So let those other people do what they do on Easter. you're here. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about some stuff. I'm glad you weighed in. I've never seen your name in the comments before, but I'm glad you weighed in. And like I said, we're all here hanging out on Easter Sunday. Dixie Champagne says this is church. So be demon happy Easter. Fortis Atticus says, hey, Stephanie Frisch, I hear you. Michael Bullington said, wasn't there a Detroit newsman who had a hall of shame? Saw a few YouTube videos of him covering towing scams and builder shenanigans. There have been a couple newsmen who did stuff like that. I'm drawing a mental blank. I know who you're thinking of. But like even Ruth Spencer had Ruth the Rescue, where she would go out and do consumer stories. And occasionally they're chasing somebody through a parking lot going, why won't you give my client his money back? And it's kind of like the same way you feel when, somebody from 60 Minutes shows up on your front step with a film crew. You're like, okay. So San Joaquin Valley Transparency. Hey, man. Hey, San Joaquin Valley Transparency. Dave Beddoes. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dave. LA Detroit. Every day alive is a blessing. I agree. Rick 0000. Stephanie Fritsch, cheer up. You are amongst friends. Good use of the old English amongst. Scott Baker. I grew up in Lincoln Park and I miss Bill Bonds. Bill Bonds is just a crusty old anchor on the ABC affiliate here for a million years. And towards the end of his career, he was famous for just editorializing right in the middle of a story. But beloved. He was like the Walter Cronkite of Detroit. He could have gone on TV and said anything and people would have believed it. So Daniel Kester, this is Mr. Lehto's public service in case he ever has that as a penalty in court. You wonder about that. If I ever got in trouble with the law and had to do like 1,000 hours of community service, could I say, well, I shoot 15 videos a week and I often talk about the law. Can that be my public service? I don't think they'd buy it. So LA Detroit, Steve, more Viper Drive videos. You said dive, but I assume you drive. I could take the Viper diving. No, yeah, I will soon. I will soon. I got to think of some fun things to do about, other than just driving around and talking to myself, which is what I basically do. Nick Rays, Steve, have you, after you receive your second shot, would you get on a cruise ship? Here's the deal. I've been on cruise ships. I've taken 3 or 4 cruises. And 2 of them were actually lengthy cruises where you're on a cruise ship for 7 days. Cruising's not for everybody. And quite frankly, if you said, Steve, you get a week off a month from now, you go anywhere you want to. I wouldn't pick a cruise. That's not what I would do. But cruises have their place. But one of the problems with cruises is that there's so many people in such a small area, you can't help but interact with a lot of them. And so we've heard of outbreaks of sickness, on board cruise ships before COVID came along. So, I'm it's not at the top of my list. I'm not. It's not that I'm scared of it. I just watched there's a documentary on HBO called The Last Cruise. The Last Cruise. And it's all about that cruise ship that was quarantined in Japan, but many of the people on board were Americans right at the outbreak of COVID. And they explain what happened from the moment they pulled into port until they basically all got off the ship like 14 days later. And at that time, not much was known about COVID. It's a fascinating story and a great documentary. So if you're interested in cruise ships and so on, take a look at that. Fortis Atticus says, I would take one of those Viking river cruises. And that's something I've never done before. So I think one of these days, somewhere down the road, I would like to go on a Viking river cruise too. And we're talking about a cruise that takes you through Europe, like down the Danube or the Rhine or, the Seine, and you actually, cruising on a river as opposed to out on the ocean, so whole different thing. And I have not done that yet, but I'd like to. Mark Jesse, when a cop asks me, do you know why I pulled you over? I say, yes. You wanted to thank me for being a safe and courteous driver. You're welcome, sir. Robert Lee, Bill Bonds was the best. He was an entertainer. Yeah. I mean, and that you have to remember old school advertising, old school news on local television was so different from what it is now even. I turn on my local TV and I hit the news station. I see a bunch of little kids doing the news. I mean, I understand they're adults, but barely. And some of them have been out of broadcast school or college about 3 years. And, it's obvious they did not put in the hard work that your Bill Bonds or your Mort Krim or your other, the other local anchors, those are guys from Detroit, did to get where they are. And so there was a time when the evening news generated so much money in advertising that they could actually pay their anchors like, $500,000, $1 million a piece. But those days are long, long gone. So Dave Beto says years ago, the Viking River cruises often resulted in pillaging. Yeah, I wonder if they ever have a Viking cruise where they just say tomorrow's activities. We're pulling into the walled city of such and such, pillage from noon till 4, and as long as you're back on by 4:30, we're going to get moving again. Souvenir hunting, pillaging. So, John Ellis says the USS Theodore Roosevelt had an outbreak and a master chief died. The skipper caught COVID. Yeah, there were also some military vessels, and that's a whole different thing. When you've got thousands of people on board an aircraft carrier, they live in close quarters. They have to. And so there's only so much they can do about that. So the Fuse Man, any bad axe weather reports? I'm not sure what happened to Johnny Knoxville. He commented on a video of mine earlier today, and then he's not here right now. So I'm not really sure. Steve from Ohio here. We're so sad that Michigan couldn't make it to the Final Four. Well, but they did a good run. I watched them lose to UCLA. I didn't watch the whole game because it was on late at night for some wacky reason. And I caught it the next day, and it was sad because they could have at least tied it up. But the real cool thing is the Gonzaga game against UCLA. I watched the ending like 10 times in a row because I heard people freaking out going, you have to see the ending of this game. And the game went into overtime, and it was going to be close. And UCLA gives the ball up with nothing left on the clock. But Gonzaga's got to inbound it from over here, and the guy just wails it down the court, and another guy catches it past the halfway mark and just puts up a prayer and banks it off the glass, and it goes in. The place goes nuts, and it's one of those things where it's like we've all seen a guy put one up like that at the end, and it never goes in, and it did. So, it was a great ending there. So, Tommy Cash, thank you for the video on Honda recall. I checked my daughter's VIN on NHTSA, and hers was on it, and she never opens her physical mail. That's the biggest concern I have about recalls, is that people don't see them in the mail, and they often look like junk, and we get so much junk that looks real. I got a card in the mail the other day, and it says, your vehicle, and it was a warranty thing, trying to sell me a warranty. But I was looking at this thing going, this thing actually looks like a semi-official document, and then I realized it doesn't have my real name on it because it was resident or something, and it never identifies what my vehicle is. Well, which vehicle? So, oh boy. Stephanie Fritsch, do you think NCAA athletes should actually get paid for their participation in sports? That's a tough call because the universities make tons of money off of them. And so you think that they maybe should. But then again, are you really going to school to make money or to learn? And they do get paid by way of scholarships and so on. I can see arguments on both sides of this. I do know I read an article not too long ago about how cheerleaders at big schools, they can't do the typical endorsement deals. But for instance, if they have an Instagram account, they can make money off of Instagram, I believe. So there's a really, really weird thing evolving now about, well, we're not going to pay them to do this, but if they get paid over here, maybe. But I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. So Achilles' Last Stand says Juwan Howard will usher in the new Michigan NCAA dynasty. I hope so. And Juwan's seems like a great coach. He, of course, was a member of the Fab Five. And I used to tell people, He was my favorite. There were 5 of them, but Juwan was my guy. So Joel Kirschman, if universities make so much money on sports, then why is tuition still so high? That's obviously a good question. And I might also ask you, why is it so high if their endowments are so large? There are some universities sitting on billions of dollars in cash, just sitting on it, just sitting there. And, there are things wrong with our university system. And there's so many different things that could be fixed. But as Steve points out, a lot of the money that gets raised by some sports goes to support other sports, such as women's sports. And I know that that's true. So, for instance, at the University of Michigan, their football program raises money like they're printing it, okay? They've got the big house that seats over 100,000 people. They sell out every game. They could, so TV rights, just tons of cash. On the other hand, they've also got, I presume, like a water polo team. I don't know how much money the water polo team makes, but they're being subsidized by somebody else, and it's the football team. So, so to speak. But it's one of those things. Well, Bill 57, free education isn't pay. Well, no, that's the question is that enough? And also, not everyone's getting a scholarship either. So, G&K family, Steve, not to get too personal, but how did you do on the LSAT? Do you want to know how much I weigh? No, I was kidding. The problem with the LSAT is that it's I'm not sure they score it the same way now. At one point in time, it was a scale of like 1 to 45 or 50 or something like that. And then they changed it to a 3-digit number. I did score in the top 10, the percentile, the top 10%. I didn't score above that. I mean, so if you had 100 takers and you sorted us by scores, I would have been number 10 below number 1, which was pretty good. But I'll be honest with you. I took a LSAT prep class. If I hadn't taken that class, I would have bombed it because it's such a weird test. And I know people who complain and say the LSAT is not really a good indicator of how you're doing in law school. And I don't think it is. But I'm not sure what a better test would be because the LSAT's got different sections on it, the law school admission test. And one of the sections is just like reading comprehension. Okay. And so you need to have reading comprehension to be a lawyer. But they have a section which is like games, like logic puzzles or logic games. And they'll actually give you a problem. And they'll say, there's 12 people who are seated at a long table. Bob can't sit next to Mary. Mary has to sit across from Jerry. Jerry cannot sit next to a woman. And they'll go, okay, seat these people. And you go, what's this got to do with being a lawyer? And some of the problems were just so weird. And they're literally the kind of problems that you see like in the back of like a magazine on an airplane just to kill time. And so I never quite understood that, but that's what they did, so, but I took a law school prep, application. I took LSAT prep course, where, and being exposed to this have really helped. I'm more morbidly curious to know how I would have done had I not taken the prep class. I bet that would have been ugly. Beware low-flying owls, LOL, Kurt B. Yeah, that's a sign up there. Someone sent that into me. We've talked about that quite a bit. And someone else says about the Fab Five that made the infamous timeout, Scott Summers, that would have been Chris Webber. And that's actually something that he's gotten a lot of grief about. But considering the circumstances and what actually happened, it's not as, there were people on the bench screaming, don't call a timeout, no timeouts, no timeouts. And there's also people behind the bench going like this. And it's unclear why they're doing that, but if you've seen footage of it, I've seen footage of it, and there's someone behind the bench doing this. And I don't know how many players are actually aware of the fact that they're out of timeouts or not out of time, and you get 2 seconds left, whatever. So, but yeah. That's unfortunately how he's most remembered for his college career, Chris Webber. But as MD Hofsky says, Jimmy King, Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, and Ray Jackson were the Fab Five. And if you go back, there's a couple games they played, even in the tournaments, where these guys were playing at a level that was so far above their competitors. But the thing that made them so interesting to watch is that they were having fun. People forget that a game is supposed to be fun. And in fact, there's a baseball player who just announced his retirement yesterday. Young guy. He just said, I'm quitting. It's not fun anymore. A pitcher. And so if you watch those guys play basketball, they were having fun. And so I remember I used to watch their games just because it was fun to watch them play. But I mean, they would do stuff like where, one guy goes up like he's going to dunk the ball and he bounces the ball off the backboard and the other guy comes in behind him and grabs it and slams it in. I mean, it's almost like, watching a demonstration of but the guys had a lot of talent. And unfortunately they had some other controversies, but oh boy. Stephanie Capanteas says, always create a chart. I'm sorry, Steven. I'm reading three different things. Directly below Steven and Stephanie. And I actually did the thing where my eyes picked up one. It's like I'm a chameleon. One eye's reading one line, one eye's reading another line. Steven Capanteas says, always create a chart or a diagram for logic problems. That's a great piece of advice, which three people in the audience need, but you're correct. So if there's a way to do that, you draw out the table I mentioned earlier and say, okay, this person can't sit next to this person. So and you try to, and as you start putting it together, if there is only one solution, which there always is, you're going to start seeing, oh, that's what's going on here, and you'll figure it out. Mr. Phil, 1969, let me rephrase that. Most standardized tests are BS. Yes and no. I mean, I know they often have short fallings, but the problem is that you have to have some way to measure some things. And if it's not a standardized test, then it becomes a very, very subjective test. I mean, do we give everyone an essay and then read the essays and grade the essays? And how do you grade the essays? So it's hard to say. Daniel Kester, are you well hydrated? So far, drinking water today. Oh, Doug Jones, break out the whiteboard. I've got the whiteboard. I'm not sure if my magic markers are any good anymore. I had something I wanted to talk about the other day, and I was going to use them, but I forgot. Todd G, what kind of reaction did you get from people when you said you were writing a book about murder houses? Most people immediately got it, and they go, "Wow, no one's written that book yet." So and the book sold really. It's still selling. The book's still selling really well. In fact. I got a royalty check from my publisher 2 days ago on it, on Friday. So, Bob A. Bong. Hi, guys. Hi, Bob. Home 60 benefits. Sometimes my eyes don't see fast enough. I tell people they're not listening fast enough when I'm talking. MD Hofsty says, for those that don't know, Ed Martin gave money to the Fab Five during their college career. And that's one of the controversies. And unfortunately, this stuff happens. And there was a guy named Ed Martin who was in the Detroit area, a huge supporter of the University of Michigan. He was a booster, they would call him. And he would often befriend high school guys who were talented in the Detroit area. And it came out later that he would often help the families out. And by helping them out, I mean, he'd give them money. And every now and then you hear these stories about where there's a high school kid someplace who's living a very, very frugal lifestyle. And suddenly he's got a brand new car. Or his mom has got a brand new car. Or something. And people are like, what? And I mean, and it's not just the Wolverines. I've heard these stories with Michigan, of course, but also I've heard it with high schools. Where, and that's, we talk about the problems with the NCAA in sports, there's an issue with high school sports as well. So, for instance, there's a private school someplace that's got a really good football team, but it's a private school. And there's some kid over here who's far, far away, and he's thinking about transferring over here to play football. And, well, they can give him a scholarship. That happens all the time. But there's no transportation. Next thing you know, somehow the kids come up with a car. And who gave him the car? So the Ed Martin thing came out later, and I forgot which of the Fab Five, because there was a couple of them from Detroit. I think at least one or two of them from Texas. And so they wound up having to forfeit all of their stuff they did that year. So. Diana Goodrich says the tests are designed to help the potential student get into a college once they could graduate. Ceasing the test standard will debt burden a student who cannot graduate. Yeah, that's one of the ways of looking at it, and I agree with that. I mean, there are people out there who think you should just let everyone into school. Anyone applies, let them in. Well, when they get in, if they can't graduate, then they've got a bunch of student debt, or they blew a lot of money they shouldn't have to get in. So there's got to be something that you can do to indicate whether someone's going to succeed or not in school. So Prince Alberts says, I have a question that involves both the law and cars. Well, if you print it here, I might read it and do what I can to answer it. In case anybody who saw the question, Anarchic Chick says, do you believe in God? Atheists tend to have higher IQs. Einstein said the Bible is a joke. There are 2 or 3 topics I will not discuss on this channel, politics being one of them, or religion being the other. So William or WM says, LOL, I usually watch your videos at 1.5 speed so I can watch more. I've had a lot of people tell me that. And I'm always concerned in talking too fast. And then someone will say, oh, no, I speed your videos up. I can keep up. So LA Detroit says, drive through beautiful Michigan areas in the Viper for us homesick Detroiters will help tourism. News always shows the depressed parts. Yeah, I could do that. I'd be scared to drive through downtown Detroit simply because the roads are still so screwed up. I don't want to put the front end into a pothole. Bob Bong says, Steve, I sent you a question on Messenger. Isn't that cheating? And when you say Messenger, do you mean Facebook Messenger? I don't see it. But we'll figure that out later. Zebulon Strait, good afternoon from Southwest Florida. My friend, I certainly hope you're not near that toxic pool that's about to drain that somehow has a radioactive waste in it. What is up with that? I'm sure many of you have caught the news this morning that there's some kind of holding pond. I think it's nearer to Tampa that is filled with some kind of water that they're holding it for a reason. It's like in prison. And unfortunately, it's got a lot of stuff in it, including radioactive material. And they're saying now that the pond might burst. And should that happen, they'll have to evacuate a lot of people. So Meme Lord McMeme says, if you get rid of federal student loan, tuition will drop by 2/3 overnight. And counterintuitively, you are correct. And this is something people don't understand, is that there was a time when to go to college, you had to actually scrape up the money and pay for it. And so I know people who worked their way through college. I know people who got PhDs that they paid for. They graduated debt-free with a PhD. They worked their way through, and they had a job, and they worked, and they paid. You couldn't work your way through college right now. It's too expensive. And you can't earn that kind of money. And so people say, well, what happened? How did it get to the point where tuition's gone like this, but wages are down here still? And one of the reasons, and you have to think about this, is that the federal student loan programs came along and said, look, we'll guarantee the loans for anybody who's going to school. And when you dump a ton of money into a market like that, prices go up. And so when the schools said basically, wait, anybody who wants to can now afford to go here, let's raise our rates. And that's what happened. And so I've actually read articles, I've heard interviews with economists who point out that the one thing you could do to lower tuition rates would be to rein in or do away with student loans, at least at the level they're at. So, Betty Boop, when is pothole season in Michigan? January 1st through December 31st. No. There's usually a period of time in the spring where they do go out and start fixing potholes. And so you don't want to drive around in an area like downtown Detroit in like March, February, maybe even early April. The potholes can be bad. And they'll patch a bunch of them by summer, and then it'll all go to heck in a handbasket in the fall. So Mr. High Beta says the holding pond is southeast of Tampa. Naturally occurring radiation close to Tampa Bay. Wait, you're telling me it's naturally occurring radiation? So I thought it had something to also do with what they're holding there. But of course, maybe that naturally occurring radiation has also got something to do with, they always joke about the drinking water. I don't know. Stephanie Fritch, I worked my way through college. Did you? Very, very cool. It's harder to. Dixie Champagne says, well, you can't, but I know several women who danced their way through college. Yeah, I suppose some people could. Kotex East says, when a student gets a loan, they should at least be interviewed by the banker. How much will you make with this Russian literature degree? Oh, Fortis Atticus, heck, in a handbasket made by a college basket weaving class. And I believe it's underwater basket weaving. In fact, I remember looking that up. Where did the phrase underwater basket weaving come from? Because it's always the joke about the most worthless class you could take. I don't think there ever was a class called underwater basket weaving, but it's just funny. Bob Bong says potholes breed orange cone flowers in Michigan. I'm not making this up. I was walking through my yard today and there's already dandelions in full bloom. William T says radon is naturally radiation. Yeah, but I've never heard of there being holding ponds filled with radioactive water before, unless I've just never heard of it because it's never come up in the news before. So, Fred Jabubi, what is your favorite vehicle that you've owned? Well, I've got a Dodge Viper right now. I mean, a full size, not that one, but a full size one, which I do like a lot. But you have to actually look at something in its context. And I had a 69 Dodge Charger in high school. And I was, 17 years old when I got it. 69 Dodge Charger, 383. And the car was a blast. It was the first car I ever owned, paid for it with my own money, worked at the gas station, all that. That was probably my favorite car at the time I owned it. But as of right now, I'm perfectly happy with the Viper as well. David Deal says here in Michigan, anyone without a degree over 25 can go to community college tuition free. I actually know about that, and that's actually a very good deal. And not a lot of people, not enough people take advantage of that. I've got a very good friend named Tom who is a professor at a community college. He teaches philosophy. And we talk a lot about, what happens at his school. And it's interesting because a lot of people do go back to school later in life. And he's actually had some students who went to community college a little bit later and did so well that they then went on and finished a bachelor's degree someplace else or went into some kind of profession, and it was the community college that got them going because it had more convenient classes they could take. They were either free or affordable or both. And so I've told people before, the shirts I wear on the show are almost always donated. Now, this is obviously one I had made, and I tell people say, what kind of shirts will you wear? And I always say, I'll wear any shirt as long as it's not, obnoxious or rude or obscene. But one thing I like is school shirts. I am a huge booster of education. So if you send me a school shirt that fits XXL, I'll wear it and I don't care. So I've got some smaller school shirts. I've got some bigger school shirts. I don't care. Education is a good thing. I want to promote education. So send them over and I'll wear them. Daniel Kester went to City College for aircraft mechanics. Patriot Lightning says cool cars in high school equals being able to date pretty girls. Luckily, I had a 1978 Bandit Trans Am my junior and senior years. What year would that have been that you had that car? I'm not sure how true that is. And this is one of those funny things about life is that guys are convinced that cars are so cool that they'll attract women. There's some women who don't care about cars. And I remember having to explain to some classmates what my car was because I had my car and it was a used car when I got it. And I remember classmates go, "What is that?" It's a Dodge Charger. And they go, "Oh, how old is it?" I tell them, they're like, "Okay. Why do you like it?" I'm like, "That's the car from like Dirty Mary Crazy Larry." Or they're like, "Huh? Oh, okay, I guess, Duncan Campbell says the phosphate mine sits in a stack of phosphogypsum, which is a radioactive waste product from fertilizer manufacturing. The pond contains small amounts of naturally occurring radium and uranium. There you go. I remember it had something to do with fertilizer. And of course, I remember that now. Home 62 Benefits is Honeywell Institute of Information Sciences in Southfield, Michigan. Tom Sherman was one of my instructors, and he was a DJ. The Honeywell Institute of Information Sciences in Southfield, Michigan. Parts of that sound familiar, not other parts. So, Patriot Lightning says that's about 80 and 81. So you had a newer car than I did. That might have helped. Oh, West Coco Gorilla says having a car and not having a car makes a big difference in dating. No, that's true. But I'm simply stating that, and I'll be honest, I had a Gremlin the year before. It was not mine, as my parents, but I drove a Gremlin the year before. My senior year, I had a 69 Dodge Charger. When I had the Gremlin, I was like kind of embarrassed. I mean, I had a car, and it was nice to have a car, but it was a big step up to go from I had this little Gremlin to I've got a 69 Dodge Charger. That was a big step up. But, there were people who didn't have cars. And it's like, I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up. It's like, okay, in high school. So, oh boy. Davey Mack, I totally slept in today, but I made it. I'm glad you did, my friend. We're still here. Kotaxista, I took a date on public transit once. That's what you do at the show that you're really like socially conscious. You're very, very concerned about, things. And you're basically there, you're looking out for your fellow man, is everybody okay on this train or bus? And Gary Weisenberger was the Gremlin blue. No, it was not. It was green. And I think Gary might be asking about the Oakland County child killer, which I'm not laughing about that, but I'm laughing about the idea that anybody in southeastern Michigan knew that in the late 1970s, and they've made documentaries about this as well, The Children of the Snow, where 4 kids got murdered. And there was a tip that the person may have been driving or associated with a blue Gremlin. And it's unclear how good that tip was, but there were people who thought it was true. I actually have read articles about a guy who lived in Birmingham who had a blue gremlin, and he said he got pulled over by the cops more times than he could care to admit, had to get rid of it because of that. But the gremlin I had was green, so didn't have problems like that. William T., I always liked the gremlins. The Gremlin was a weird little car. AMC had a really strange design studio. The Pacer, the Gremlin, the Javelin, the Matador. The Matador. So, Jerry Brown, did you get to drive the International? No, we talked last week about the Lehto mobile, the International Harvester travel wall. I was too young to drive it. My parents got rid of that. I'm guessing mid 1970s, 74, 73. I'm not sure, right around there somewhere, 75. And it was the one that had the shifter on the tree. Never drove it. Rode it a lot, but never drove it. David Person's place, did they ever get any intelligent leads about the Oakland County child killer? They think they did. And you have to see the documentaries about it. But you have to remember that the Oakland County child killer was a 2-hour range period, or 2-year range period. And in that 2-year range, there were 4 murders. And they happened depends on whether you talk about where the kid was abducted, where the kid was found, but in Oakland County, and one is, I think, in Wayne County. But Southfield, Birmingham, Berkeley, that stretch up and down Woodward Avenue. And the problem they had is that back then there was not really good coordination between different police departments. And so there were a bunch of tips that probably got lost. And then there were so many tips that came in that there was just a mass to dig through. And it's very sad because they never did, catch anybody for it. They've got some very good theories about who it may have been, and some of the people may have passed away now. I would strongly urge you to check out the documentary "Children of the Snow," and it's fascinating all these years later. Daniel Hammett, Steve, can I send you a Williams Bay PD shirt to wear? I'm a cop who agrees mostly with you. Hey, no one agrees with everything I say. Absolutely. Absolutely. Double XL. XXL, I will wear it. I also do wear fire department shirts and police department shirts. Although someone got mad at me a couple weeks ago and said that I was so pro-police it was making them sick. I get accused of being too far one way or the other, and it comes from both sides. So what can I tell you? Stephanie Fritsch, first thing I drove was a tractor. I've known people who had spent years driving tractors and other lawn farming equipment long before they had driver's licenses. So it's got to help, learning to control something that large. Paula Heuser, I owned the car that I thought was cool, a 73 Carmen Ghia convertible. Never cared about what the guys drove. My car was the coolest. That's what I thought. I just liked nice guys, and I married one. And I hope the car played a part. The Carmen Ghia was always an interesting car. You'd see them from time to time. A little different, but it was almost like seeing a Volkswagen back then. A little rarer, but same kind of thing, because it was a different enough car to where it's not like you went used car shopping and I could buy this or I'll buy Carmen Ghia. No. It's something that somebody went out of their way to say, I'm going to get one of these. And so it's very, very different. Jerry Ormston says, I passed my test at 17, but I couldn't afford a car. So I had to drive my dad's Russian Lada Riva in the mid-'80s. Not a chick magnet. Was that in the U.S.? I've never seen a Russian Lada in the U.S., but Dixie Champagne says, so you got to please yourself. Out of context, that could mean one thing, but I suspect you're talking about the Ricky Nelson song, Can't Please Everybody. So you got to please yourself. Daniel Kester, my first practical means of transportation was a 3-year-old Appaloosa. The good old days. Stephanie Fritsch, I wish I could afford to buy a car. No public transportation where I live. Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit before about how in America, public transportation is hit or miss. Some towns are good, some towns not at all. So it's very, very difficult. Ram 50 V8, the garden tractor in my Icon pick, is the first vehicle I drove. Still have it fully restored. That's cool. That's cool. Donnie D, I saw a VW thing on the road yesterday. Oh, that's one where you really stop and look at it and go like, okay, I understand the idea. It's a neat looking vehicle, although it looks like a World War II surplus vehicle. But to call it a thing, I always thought if you're going to do that, you may as well get an endorsement from the Addams family and put a picture of a hand on the side of it, the thing. But Mina Vanderleest says, my first car was a white Pinto. The driver's door didn't open, so I got in through the window. I think we've all had those vehicles where something falls apart and you're thinking to yourself like, okay, I'm going to get rid of it, but for the time being, I'm just going to tolerate it. And before you know it, you're doing stuff like that. And I wrote an article about it. It's not up anymore, but I wrote an article a while back about the Ford Explorer I had before the one I've got now that I drove for 237,000 miles. And right at the very end, a bunch of weird little things happened and broke on it. And at one point in time, the key locks stopped working and the fob stopped working. And so the only way I could get into the car was I could reach, the car's got these vent windows. So the door opens up and then right here's a vent window and a vent window on each side, like gills. And I would leave one of them unlocked and I'd pull it open and my arms are just long enough where I could reach in and unlock the door, but I couldn't do it on the driver's side. So I had to do it. So open the window, open the door, reach across, open the door, close this all up, walk around, get in and drive it. Mechanically, it ran like a Swiss watch. But locking it up was a little bit difficult. So, that's embarrassing to admit. JJCO40, my first car was a yellow Citation. The color matched the quality, lemon. And Citation is one of those names where somebody sat down and said, let's think of a name that's kind of neutral and positive connotations maybe, but, Citation. And you understand that Citation can be like he was given a citation for his good work. You can also be cited for speeding, and so it's a ticket. You've been ticketed. So I just always thought that was one of the lesser names when it comes to a well-picked name for a car. John Ellis, my first car was a Peugeot 505. Fell asleep and hit a 3-ton truck. Bought another one. Will crash again. Peugeot. Peugeot is one of those car companies that the market share in America has never been an actual whole number, but I've known people who've owned them. I actually known 2 or 3 different people who had Peugeots, and one of the guys that I know who had one loved the thing, but he only could find like 1 or 2 people who'd work on it, and it was a nightmare to work on, and it would cost him a fortune and it'd take forever. So something would happen to the Peugeot, and it would be at this place getting worked on for a while. No one else would work on it. So, Melissa Way, the first car I had was a 1970 Dodge Charger. White vinyl top and a powder blue body. It was all beat up when I got it, but it was huge. I could fit 6 people in that thing. Oh, yeah. See, the 70 Dodge Charger was very similar to the 69. The difference mainly, taillights were changed and the front bumper. I didn't like the front bumper in the 70s as much as the 69, but that's very, very minor. The car was a full-size car. They raced them in NASCAR. And the front seat, you could get buckets or you could get this bench that had a fold-down thing in the middle. And you could fold that up and easily fit 3 adults in the front and easily fit 3 adults in the back. I don't know I ever had 6 people in my car, but there's a lot of room in there. I know that. So great cars back then. G Voked, I feel like Rodney Dangerfield today can't get no respect. I must have missed the earlier part of the conversation. 90 knots, hello, late again from a warm and windy OKC. And likewise, Steve Brannon, late hello for the Northeast Maryland. Thank you for checking in, my friends. I appreciate that. Kyle Otto, first car was a Citation. 2. If it went more than a week between breakdowns, something big broke. There were some real bland cars from General Motors, 70s and 80s. They're just not a bright spot for them. Gary Weisenberger, my first car was a 68 Ford Torino GT with a 429 5-speed. Let my girlfriend drive it, now my wife. I assume that was part of the dowry process. Honey, I'll let you drive it, but you got to marry me. You don't just let anybody drive your car, especially not one of those. So, Bob Bong, my first car was a 76 Toyota Land Cruiser, listed as a station wagon. It had a 4-wheel drive, and my dad would snowplow with it. Yeah, and that's the funny thing, is how they often call, the SUVs the station wagons, depending on what the registration is in your state. Stephanie Fritch, have you ever had Scrapple? Scrapple, is that a drink? Or am I thinking of Snapple? It's not a board game, is that Scrabble? I'm not sure what Scrapple is. Patriot Lightning, been in the towing business for 30 plus years, want to know what kind of car not to buy? Ask a tow truck driver or ask a lemon law attorney. No, but that's actually funnier because the tow truck drivers in many respects are like the MASH units, whereas the dealerships are like the hospitals. It's not that the tow truck driver is going to fix your car for you, but he's going to be the one that gets called to, hey, my car's broken down, come get it. So they come grab it and drag it someplace to get it fixed so they would know. That's pretty funny. Jan Kumps, which might be Jan Kumps, you have to pronounce the EU in Peugeot like the I in girl. So Peugeot. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I believe you. I think I'd hurt myself if I kept doing that. Rampaging Bull, he has risen. Good morning, all 66 Dodge Satellite. Oh, MD Hofsty says Scrapple is a meat product made in the Pennsylvania Dutch region that is smoked. I was unaware of that. I'm always interested in regional foods as long as they aren't disgusting. There's only one way to know, and that's to actually see it in person. So someday we'll have to check that out. I'll make a mental note. Mixed with spices and oatmeal, someone said. Leon Majors. Dennis Barabo says, hey, amazing how the Campbell soup can was the same size as a muffler pipe. Comes in handy doing those fast repairs, Jordan Alsop Ford, first on race day. Well, that's one. Or fix or repair daily. Or fill oil reservoir daily. And so on. There are more. Bad Touch Biden. My first car was pretty boring. 1984 S10. But I got to drive my mom's Toyota Supra occasionally. It's funny how pickup trucks evolved in our society. When I was in high school, nobody would have driven a pickup truck. I don't know anybody who had one. And then when I worked at the gas station, one of my coworkers had a red Ford pickup truck. He put wheels on it, nice, cool wheels on it. It's 2-wheel drive, nothing special about it in that respect. But it was bright red. It had a, sunroof. And it was a cool car. And I remember going, that's neat, but, it's got a cab that you can fit 2.5 people into. And it's got a bed, but, and so back then, having a pickup truck as your daily driver when you didn't need a pickup truck just made no sense. And you fast forward to now, and you can buy a pickup truck that's got a fold-down gate that costs more to replace than my friend's pickup truck did back in 1979 or 78. and you realize how times have changed. So pickup trucks are a much, much larger part of the segment, or larger segment of the population of cars being bought and sold, and they're also being used for different purposes. So, Patriot Lightning says Scrapple is the nastiest thing ever. So disgusting that Mike Rowe featured how it is made on an episode of Dirty Jobs. The funny thing, though, is that you often don't want to see food getting made. I assure you that if you saw how they make hamburger, for instance, okay? So, that by itself won't do it. I just need to see the end result. But I know people who don't like pasties. And pasties from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I like them as long as they're well made at a good place. So, yeah, Fortis Atticus says nowadays you got all these four-door pickup trucks with strange designs. Yeah, you got your king cabs and all that stuff, and they're expensive too. So, yeah, DJ AM says you can always rent a car for $20 if you need one. $20 might be a little low these days, but you can rent cars. That's true. Steve Brandon, a pickup or an SUV nowadays costs what a second mortgage would be. That's actually true. I've actually known people who had vehicles that cost more than their homes. I'm not making that up. So it's possible these days. As a J Foods asks, as a Michiganian and Thomas Hearns fan, do you have any thoughts on the passing of former middleweight champ Marvin Hagler? I read about that recently. I mean, I'm aware of it, and it's sad. But I hadn't followed the guy's career much since then. But there was a time when the boxing world, there was Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and these guys weren't the heavyweights. And so if you followed boxing in the 60s and 70s, the heyday of Muhammad Ali, for instance, and George Foreman and those guys, the heavyweights were always the big newsmakers. And Tommy Hearns came along from Detroit, and he had a stellar beginning to his career. And I mean, he was a good fighter. And he wound up, I think, winning at least 2, maybe 3 different weight classes. And along the line, he did fight Marvin Hagler, and he also fought Sugar Ray Leonard. And, some of those fights are classics and so on. But I always admired Tommy Hearns, especially because of the fact he came from Detroit, the Kronk Gym. And there's some other fighters that came out of there as well. But Marvin Hagler, in his prime, would be one of the 2 or 3 boxers that don't get me wrong, Mike Tyson can hit you hard. Marvin Hagler could hit you hard too. And I mean, he was known for being a guy who could if he hit you, you'd know about it. So it's sad to hear about his passing. Betty Boop says, when I was in high school, all the guys drove trucks with gun racks in the back window with 0 theft, 74 to 76. Yeah, but where was that? What state was that? Because I think that's also part of it. I know that pickup trucks are have always been popular, like in Texas, right? So Achilles' last stand. My dad worked at Ford and retired from Ford, but never actually drove one. Really? Because didn't he get a discount for working there, like A plan? But I'm curious to know what he did drive. Dixie Champagne says a pasty and gift shop between Munising and Christmas that has some divine blueberry pasties. Would like to try them in melted butter. Now, Munising is up there on the shore of Lake Superior. Christmas is to the west of it, not too far. I'm aware of Muldoon's pasties at the west end of Munising. And I'm also familiar with what's in Christmas, but there ain't a whole lot. So I'm not sure what the pasty and gift shop would be between Munising and Christmas. So if you could fill me on that, I'd appreciate it. One of my favorite stretches of road, though, goes right along the south shore of Lake Superior between Munising and like Marquette. You pass things like the Laughing Whitefish River, one of my favorite place names of all time. I picture a whitefish bent over in laughter. The Laughing Whitefish River. Oh, boy. Jerry Ormston, have you ever seen the UK Top Gear Toyota Hilux episode where they try to destroy it? No, I have not. I've not seen a whole lot of Top Gear. I've seen a few. I just never got into it. So I've not seen that episode. Patriot Lightning says, if you worked at Ford, he drove a Toyota so he wouldn't be stranded and late for work. Yeah, but if you drove a Toyota, they wouldn't let him in the parking lot. There were a lot of plants in Michigan where it actually said specifically, big old letters, American cars only. Foreign cars, park over there. And they'd have a lot that was farther away. So Dixie Champagne, that's probably it. Can't think of the name. Well, have you been there or did you see it on the internet? Because as you go through Munising, Munising is basically the first time you see Lake Superior as you drive up from the lower, if you go through, as opposed to going up to, like, say, over towards Tequamanon. And so as you cruise in and you finally see Lake Superior, there's a road you're coming in on. There used to be an A&W stand here. It's changed 15 times, and sometimes it's not even a restaurant. I think at one point it was a bakery, a bank. It's also been a bakery. It's been a donut shop. It's been a Little Caesars. It's been a Pizza Hut. And then you hang a hard left, go through town, bunch of gas stations. There's a Dairy Queen on the left, a couple cool old buildings. I believe you pass the Alger County Courthouse. I don't know about that. Actually, that's the other way, but I think there's Alger County Museum. And then as you curve around the bay, you pass Munising High School. And then you start coming around, and just you come around, there's a bunch of signs for like glass bottom boat tours and stuff. And then there's Muldoon's Pasties right there. And Muldoon's is, I believe, the best pasties you can buy in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but some people will argue with me about that. And then if you get your pasties to go and keep going, you'll then go up the hill and head left, and you'll be following the shoreline along. And as you go up, you can look out and see Grand Island, for instance, out there in Lake Superior. And then you'll cruise along and you'll pass through Train, Christmas, and like I said, Laughing Whitefish River you'll go over, and eventually you'll make your way over towards Marquette. It's very, very, very beautiful stretch of road along there. So, JJ CEO 40, any road trips planned for this year now that vaccination rates are up? I'm getting there. I get my second shot in a week and a half, and I'll start making some decisions then. So we'll see what's going to happen. I mentioned before, there's one other project I'm working on with a friend of mine. Can't go into the details just yet. Very, very soon. But depends on what happens with that project. And I'll make some announcements here. So. Blah, blah, blah. You don't like Top Gear. I'm unsubscribing. I didn't say I didn't like it. I just never got into it. I've watched it. I've watched a few episodes, and to me, it was hit or miss. I saw an episode where they were trying to build a bridge over the River Kwai, and I'm not quite sure I got it, like what was going on there. And then I saw the episode where they pretended that a Volt ran out of power when it hadn't, an electric car, and they claimed they were joking, and it's like General Motors is like, guys, so. Burke, Youp, or gravy or ketchup? Believe it or not, butter. Butter number one choice, ketchup number two. I don't know if I've ever had gravy. To me, I'm not interested in that. So, Lee Weaver says the vaccine does not prevent you from getting or passing COVID. No, it doesn't. Still have to be careful, but you will be able to do more things than you could before, and eventually the world will return to normal. STP World says I have a random Buick program for vintage 1990s Mac, and it plays a song at the beginning. It has vintage car sales info. Yeah, there was a time when they were experimenting with how to integrate computers into business. Leo the Nomad, Steve, what is a pasty? A pasty is it's like a pie, and it's got a crust that goes around it, but it's filled with meat and potatoes, carrot, and rutabaga in just the right mix. And they're very, very good. They go back a ways. They actually came from Cornwall, but they became very popular in the mining communities because you could make it and cook it and then leave it, and a worker could take it to work and heat it up at work by putting it over a fire or whatever, and you can eat it like a big sandwich. And so they still sell them in the UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they're very, very good. Every restaurant north of the bridge, almost everyone has pasties. They might not even be on the menu. I've been in a restaurant before and say, "Have you got pasties?" Yes. Where are they in the menu? Oh, they're not there. Everyone just knows. So Galen Urso is a Tesla. Is it Tesla that the guys pretended ran out of power? I don't know why I thought it was a GM. I could be wrong. It's been a long time. Burke Uper says, "You're the man. I'm a butter fan and some ketchup if it's mediocre." And here's the thing. To me, if the meat is good, I want to taste the meat. And if you want to cover the flavor of the meat up like on a hot dog, yeah, ketchup. Go nuts. But the sad part is there are places that don't carry butter. And I think Lehto's Pasties is one of them, where one of their outlets, the one on US 2, doesn't have butter. And I'm like, "I'd like a couple pasties." They go, "We don't have butter." "What do you mean don't have butter?" And they go, "No one asks for it." I'm like, "I do every year." And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're that guy." Jonathan Bailey, but that you're talking about pasties. Pasties. If it's along a pasties are something women used to wear in places where they weren't allowed to show certain parts of their bodies. But if it's a pasty, then it is in fact something you eat up north. Burke Uber, we make ours with venison. Yeah, you can often get them made with other things. I think you can get them made with chicken. I think you can get a veggie pasty as well. I'm not quite sure what they put in there to substitute, or they put in like more potatoes. So D Wood says one guy put barbecue sauce in pasties and they ran him out of town. That sounds intriguing though. I never thought of that one. And the interesting thing is they are often associated with Finns, but it has nothing to do with the Finns other than that Finns consumed them, but they were not Finnish. Like if you go to Finland and ask for a pasty, they will not know what you're talking about unless they're well versed in what happens in America. Galen Urso says that Tesla sued them and they made an episode where they had a car full of lawyers. I don't know why, but in my mind, I wasn't thinking that Tesla went back that far. But, that's what I get for not watching the show, I guess. DJ AM says homemade pasties with fresh veggies from the family garden. And Smack says Cornish pasties. Yeah, Cornish. They're from Cornwall. Betty Boop says, how about a road trip, spring fling, and Viper drive to Lehto's Pasties? What's interesting about Lehto's Pasties is just about 5 miles west of St. Ignace in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, meaning that I could zoom up there in the Viper, cross the bridge, go get pasties, and come back. I could easily do that in one day. Don't tempt me. To make it work, I'd actually have to drive and eat. Well, see, I get complaints. I get complaints when I eat in my car, and I'll also get complaints if people perceive that I'm driving not safely. If they say, "Hey, you're not driving safely." I am pretty certain that if I had to, I could drive and eat a pasty at the same time. But I won't do that on video because, again, it would upset people. And I would never do that in real life. Never. So there you go. MD Hofsty says, Steve, the Tesla Model S was released in 2012, but the Roadster was released in 2008. Wow. It's a long time ago. Where were you in 2008? Oh, boy. Fortis Atticus, do they make breakfast-style pasties? I think they do. I know they make a whole different variety of them, and I wouldn't be surprised. But there are the purists who think that no, it can only have the meat, the potatoes, the carrot, and the rutabaga. There's other people like, no, let's do like a taco pasty, and so I'm not sure whether you can. Something's ringing a very, very faint bell on that one, though. William says, or WM says, be sure to wear your mask and social distance, even if you have had the vaccine. Way too many COVIDiots out there. Take any chance. Remember to be effective. The mask must cover both nose and mouth. Yeah, no, I don't trust me. I'm good. I'll continue wearing the mask. I might just continue wearing it just forever. I kind of think it's cool to walk into a store and wear a mask. No, like, hey, no one knows who I am. Not that they would otherwise, but. Amateur shooter, how do you feel about Egg McMuffins? I actually do eat them from time to time. If I'm on the road and it's morning and I need to eat, I will pull the McDonald's and get a sausage McMuffin or an Egg McMuffin, whatever they're called. I like the one with the sausage and the egg. It's the monstrosity, and I'll get one of those. And it's a handy breakfast you can eat with one hand. So. Natka Lushchik says, hello, I just joined because I'm lonely. So hi, happy Easter. Well, thank you for checking in, my friend. Dwayne Smalls, happy Easter, Steve. Happy Easter, Dwayne Smalls. Small World says, idiot. Not sure what that's a reference to, but it's just a word, and with no verb attached to that word, it's not a sentence. So I'm not quite sure if I missed something else. Are they self-identifying as an idiot, or are they calling somebody an idiot, or are they just picking 5-letter words? Don't know. That's what happens in the conversation. It gets ahead of me, and I miss stuff, so I apologize. DW Fink, my understanding is that pasties originally were made for loggers' lunches. I've heard forest guys and also mine workers. So in the Upper Peninsula, you'd have lots of both. Depends on the time frame and where you are. But yeah, the lumberjacks and the miners would take them to work. So. Michael Doherty, going to a bank wearing a mask a year from now and they'll hand you a bag of money. I wonder, as I think that people have become desensitized to the idea of seeing someone wearing a mask, that I suspect that someone walking into a bank wearing a mask, even a couple years from now, won't raise that many red flags. A ski mask, maybe, but just the all-purpose, like especially the one that looks like the type that you wear at the hospital. I don't think anybody will care. I think it's going to become like, there's countries in Asia where they wear masks all the time. They've developed that way. David Person's place, White Castle sliders make the best road food ever. Again, I've not gotten into White Castle, but I've never had many White Castles near where I live. Like, I'm not even sure where the nearest White Castle is to me right now. I'm sure there's one out there, but I mean, I've eaten there before, but it's been years. So I have to admit, I've not done that. Not Kalushchik, do you like sushi? Not really. And the reason I say that is I'm reasonably certain that fish should be cooked. I understand that entire cultures believe you can eat raw fish. I don't belong to those cultures. Sorry. So, Don Jackson, did you ever think you'd be famous when you were growing up? No, but I'm not famous yet. So we'll see. Someday, maybe. FDSS, good afternoon, Steve Lehto. Happy Easter. Sorry, I'm late. Hey, no problem. Better late than never. Robert Hart, I had homemade pasties just the other day. I'm trying to remember when the last time I had a homemade pastry was. It's been years. Is it Liam Brown or Lamb Brown? Have a good Easter. Not sure says internet famous. Well, I could be internet famous, I guess. Stephanie Frisch, I have been on CNN. So have I, believe it or not. I keep telling you guys this, and I keep forgetting. I have a videotape of myself on CNN about the year 2000, maybe. And it's a pretty long piece, 7 or 8 minutes long total. And I've got the video. I just need to get it converted. I got to talk to my friend Nate. Nate's the one who converted the tape of me on the BBC. So I'll have to break that out one of these days. Ron Della Garza says, dude, you know Jay Leno. That's famous. Yeah, he's famous. Doesn't make me famous. John Doe. Oh, boy, Steve is live. Yeah, I for a little while longer. Julian Phillips. Howdy, howdy. Yubu, White Castle is the worst burger ever. Yeah, I was never that impressed with the flavor of a White Castle hamburger. White Castle, to me, has always been like the Taco Bell of the burger world. You can get a lot of food cheap. If you simply want to ingest something and you are on a limited budget and it's late at night, White Castle, Taco Bell, I think they're in that food group. Yes, you can ingest it and it's cheap and they're open late nights. But, you know, when it comes to like, boy, I'd like to have a good hamburger right now. White Castle literally doesn't even enter the conversation in my head. And yes, there's a conversation in my head. So. Springer 1981 says Monica Lewinsky was famous just for knowing someone that was famous. I don't know that that's true. She was famous because she interacted with somebody who was famous and her interaction became famous. Jonathan Bailey says, Steve, I always get a kick out of the way you emphasize the word years. What's funny is I've been getting a lot of grief lately for pronouncing words that begin with the letters W and H, like wheel. And I've had people go, no, it's wheel. Like it pronounced W-E-E-L. And it's wheel. There's an H there. But people go, well, no, it's W-H, not H-W. But if you were to look in a dictionary, which I can do because I got one. Make sure I grab the right one. And wrongo is a word. Wrongo, slang, chiefly in the U.S., a bad, dishonest, or untrustworthy person. It's a noun. He's a wrongo. But let us go to the portion of the dictionary where you might find a word that begins with a WH, such as wheel. Whoa. A lot of definitions. And you'll notice that the word is pronounced. That ain't going to help you any, is it? But the pronouncer says HW, and then the symbol for the E sound and the L sound. But you do pronounce HW, eel. Wheel is correct. So I'll put that back later. Oh, boy. D. Wood says Taco Bell is lousy road food. Well, one of the biggest problems with Taco Bell also is how do you eat it? Because it's not always the tacos and the shells and stuff break up and you get food everywhere and, you know, whatever. John Doe says, Steve, just finished your video on delivering newspapers as a kid You talked about the lady who stole your mittens and how bad that was. You said you had guns pulled on you. Have you ever told that story? I don't know if I have. And if I haven't told it yet, I want to do a video on it, I think. It's actually a lengthy story, but it's a good one. So I'll have to check. I don't know. I've done now something like 2,000 videos. Who counts? And people will tell me, Steve, you've already told us that story. Or you've mentioned that before. And I'll go back and a lot of times, if I do a complete video on something, it's easier for me to find. But if I mention it in passing, I might not remember how much of a story I told. And so I know I talked about the lady who stole my mittens because on this planet, in my lifetime, I've only encountered 2 or 3 people who I would say personified pure and unadulterated evil. And the woman who stole my mittens, I am convinced that right now, Satan has a corner picked out for her that's dark and it's hot and it's got red velvet ropes around it. And when other people walk by and go, "Excuse me, sir, who's that saved for?" He goes, "It's saved for the woman who stole Steve Lehto's mittens." I'm convinced of that. You could not convince me otherwise. That woman belongs burning down there for eternity, because I'm sure that stealing my mittens wasn't the only bad thing she ever did, but it was bad. So, but the fact that somebody pulled a gun on me once, I'm not sure if I've told this story or not. I'm going to take a look into it. But if I haven't, I will do a complete video on it one of these days. And so thank you for reminding me of that. Robert Hart says, "I've seen every video for the last 3-ish years. I don't recall you ever telling that story." Okay. And like I said, I'll ask around. I know some people are very, very good at reminding me and saying, "Oh no, I remember that one." That one. Fortis Atticus, mitten thief. What the heck? I delivered newspapers as a little kid for years at Detroit Free Press. And one winter, I had a pair of mittens that were like ski mittens. They were expensive, but I had to wear them because it's so cold in the mornings. And they were actually, I believe they were down-filled leather mittens. They're expensive. And I was a pretty big kid, so they were adult mittens. And I went to pick up my newspapers one morning, and it was at a 7-Eleven, not actually, but a competitor of 7-Elevens that's open 24 hours a day. And the newspaper guy would bring the newspapers inside for the store and then leave mine outside. And a woman showed up for work one day and saw the newspaper and dragged mine inside also. So I got there, my papers are gone. I'm like, where'd my papers go? So I'm walking around, finally it dawns on me, like, I wonder if she took them. So I walk inside and I go, "Excuse me, did you grab some papers that were out here?" And she goes, "Yeah, why?" And I go, "Those are mine." And she goes, "Oh, well, I wasn't sure what to do with them." I said, "No, those are mine." I go, "Where are they?" And she goes, "Right." And she points. And so the regular papers were out here where the other guy put them. And there's 2 bundles of papers that are mine. And I take my mittens off and put them down so I can carry these things outside, because I had to grab them around the binding things, go right back inside, my mittens are gone. And I'm like, "Where are my mittens?" The woman's like, "What are you talking about?" And she stole the mittens. I'm like 12 or 13 years old. And it was like 20 below zero. I go, "I just took my mittens off and put them right there." And she goes, "No, you didn't." And so, I mean, she's an adult. I'm a kid. I could have started tearing the place apart looking for him. And she could have called the cops and said, "Yes, this kid's going nuts, ripping apart the store." So I went and delivered the papers with no mittens. And I went home and I had to tell my parents, "Yeah, this woman at the store stole my mittens." And, got another set of mittens. But I mean, it's just, who steals mittens from a child? So it's getting me pissed off right now. Sorry. And no, I don't need mittens. Now, Dave is saying there's an episode called 5.263, When a Guy Pulled a Gun on Me. Is there really? See, if there is, then that saves me the trouble. I can't search this one, can I? Never mind. I'll look later. Lehto, was it 5.263? 5.263. when a guy pulled a gun on me. Okay. I forgot I'd done that one. Oh, boy. Jeff says, it's Easter, Steve. Forgive her. If she found me today and asked for forgiveness, I would consider it. Yes, and do not send me mittens. I do not need mittens. I've got gloves. I've got work gloves. I've got gloves I wear in nice places. I got gloves. I don't need mittens. So there you go. Oh, and by the way, I will tell you one last thing I got to tell you. I was sent 2 industrial-sized cases of toilet paper last year. 2 big cases of toilet paper. Someone claimed they sent me a third, but just so you know, I still have not had to buy toilet paper since then. Those 2 cases have lasted me, and I've still got, I think, 1 more unopened 6-pack. So, to the various people who sent me toilet paper years ago, or a year ago, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Natka Lushchik, how often do you stream? Every single Sunday at this same time. It's 1 o'clock Eastern time in America. Blue Oddball, do you ever have mitten nightmares? No, I've moved on. I tell the story now, but that's pretty much it. Amateur shooter. Steve doesn't go outside anymore when it's 20 below zero. I try not to. MD Hofsty says, I can't imagine why you forgot you did a video. Yeah, no, I like I said, I had a very faint memory. I'd mentioned it before. But one thing I have to tell you is that my biggest concern on a video like that is that it has a word in the title that would get it demonetized. So I'm pretty sure if you watch the video, you won't see any ads. Hey, that's a good thing, right? Oh, boy. John Doe, were you ever able to find those big glass radio transmitter tubes you were looking for? Right there. There's 2 of them right there. Both sent in by listeners or viewers. Gary Weisenberger, do you have driving gloves? No. That's one thing I've never understood. I've never felt the need to wear gloves to drive because once the car is warmed up on the inside, trust me, I'm not doing something so aggressive that the skin in my hands doesn't work. So, MD Hofsey says, I checked your Social Blade and boy, 1,400 uploads. That's short though, because I've taken down a lot of videos. I was posting videos early on, and a lot of them didn't get many views, and so I'd pull them down to unclutter the channel. So I've actually got closer to 2,000 videos that I posted. But if you didn't see some of them, they're gone. Sorry about that. Kurt B, wow, already coming up on 200,000 subscribers. I'm at 173 right now. Is it 173? 173. 992. So if there's anybody in this stream right now who is not subscribed to me, would you please go to my channel quickly and subscribe? Because I need 8 more subscribers to hit 174. I remember when I was at 99, 95, I think it was, and I went onto Facebook and I'm like, please, I need subscribers. I need to hit 10,000. So it's just numbers. Cotaxista says some Asian countries require taxi drivers to wear white gloves. It's the white glove service. Springer 1981 says, I just subscribed. And I'm updating. Hang on. I'm updating. And now I got the wheel of death. Come on. Liam Brown, I just subbed. Oh, 174. See? You know, I worked in radio for years, playing the hits, playing the oldies, whatever I could go on the air and go, hey, right now, give me a call. You want to hear something? Phone's just dead. Just dead. And people are listening, but to actually pick up a phone before their cell phones, pick up a phone and dial a number 251-5105 or 695-WWCK in the Tri-Cities. To pick up a phone and make a phone call, hey, how you doing? Can you play, Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison? Thank you. Where are you calling from? And you're wondering, is anybody listening? Now, I can see people are here. That's beautiful. I love that. But when I say I'd really like a couple more subscribers, and I immediately gained like 10 now, wow. Or 14. Very, very cool. So I'm over 174 right now, which is pretty cool. I appreciate that. So, 395 PRS. I'm thinking of subscribing. Maybe I can spare a square. I haven't got a square to spare. Pretty Butterfly doesn't take much to make Steve happy. That's the point. I'm low maintenance. I am low maintenance. JJ CEO 40, play Misty for me. That's a great movie. It has a few minor technical flaws, which I will completely overlook, but it is such a cool movie. Clint Eastwood stars in it and directs it. He's a disc jockey on the West Coast, and he has a stalker. Hey, you haven't made it until you've got a stalker. And of course, the title to the moving picture is a shout out to the song that his stalker requests that he play, because he plays the romantic music late at night. And the great thing of it is that the movie did very, very well. I like the movie a lot. I've seen it several times. I watched it once again about a month ago. And there's a lot to like about the movie. But the sad part is that Fatal Attraction is pretty much that movie just completely ripped off. Now, it's not a disc jockey, but it's so reminiscent that I remember reading a description of Fatal Attraction going, this is Play Misty for me, just in a different setting. So, Mike Bennett, is there anybody out there? Hello. By the way, the other day I mentioned where the police officer walked up to me and said, hey, what's your name? Who's your daddy? Several people caught that as a Zombies reference. Thank you very much. Davey Mack, my girlfriend just subscribed. There you go. Daniel Kester, hey, Steve, play Beep Beep. That's a real oldie. Mr. Phil, 1969, used to love calling my local radio station, talking to the DJs. I'm still friends with a few of them today. FM 106.3, WHTG. Where's that? It's kind of funny. I actually discovered when I was in high school that there were radio stations I could call, and if I got through, there's a good chance it'd put me on the air because I had a decent enough voice in high school to where if I called an oldies stations that would play requests, I would actually call up and just say, hey, is there any chance that you guys can play a song for me? And a lot of times they'd say, oh, by the way, do you want to be on the air? And I say, sure. And WDRQ became, I think it was Tower FM, WTWR. At one point, I'm playing oldies. And I remember calling them and also a couple other stations. And I remember being on, getting a kick out of it, going, hey, I was on the radio. I got to say, like, hey, this is Steve calling from Birmingham, and I want to hear such and such on such, and the little thing. Later on, I was on the radio. I used to do that all the time, and I had regular callers, and I knew there were certain callers with good voices. And hang on a second. I need you to introduce a song for me because you want to put callers in the air and make it sound like more people are involved. So, yes, DePaul 31 points out that I did mention In Through the Outdoor, Led Zeppelin, because that guy at Disney World got caught going in the wrong door. MKJO, anyone ever call you Dr. Johnny Fever? No, but I'm aware of his work. So, the Fuse Man, how about some Delaney and Bonnie? Or Seals and Crofts, Brewer and Shipley. B Demon, I just made 18 inches of copper jewelry chain while listening to the live stream. Like chainmail where you're like weaving it. Gary Weisenberger, I played blues in the Saturday morning on WDET. If nobody'd call to make a request, I'd fake talking to somebody. That's funny. DET is an interesting radio station. It's the NPR affiliate in Detroit. It's affiliated with also Wayne State University. It's a very, very well-known station, and they've had a bunch of important stuff happen there. I've been on this station many times. I knew a woman who worked there who's since gone on to work at the national NPR level, and a couple other people I know who worked there, and they've interviewed me about different things that books I've written and so on. So, Kotex Easta calls out the word booger, which is why Johnny Fever was allegedly fired at another market before he wound up at WKRP. Gary Weisenberg says WDET came from the UAW. I forgot about that. The UAW had some radio stations, and at one point in time they had WDET, and then it went over to Wayne State. It's always interesting because there was a time when you could get a radio station pretty cheaply, and then of course later on that wasn't true. So radio signals in some large markets, I remember when they were first selling for the millions of dollars and then tens of millions of dollars. And that's come down a little bit since then in a lot of these places. But DET has a great signal in Detroit. But, at one point in time, the UAW owned them. Bond James says Bailey was hot in WKRP. It's kind of like the Marianne Ginger argument about who was hotter, WKRP. And I think Bailey gets a lot of votes on that one. So Mr. Phil says WHTG is one of the first commercially successful alt-rock stations in the U.S. But where? Did I miss that? I'm just the callers aren't ringing out to me, so I'm not quite sure where it's located. That's all. City of license. I'm assuming it's east somewhere, but I had a 50-50 on that, right? Yeah, Daniel Kessler says Johnny Fever was fired allegedly for saying booger in Los Angeles, according to the show. And D Wood, of course, says, the operator says 40 cents more for the next 3 minutes. Please, Mrs. Avery, I just want to talk to her. We talked about that last week. Sylvia's mother and Shel Silverstein. Richard R. checking out for now. And Mr. Phil says the radio station he's talking about is Tinton Falls, New Jersey. Tinton Falls, New Jersey. Interesting. So, and W east of the river, K west of it. For the most part, there are a few exceptions. Jerry Ormston says, why do so many U.S. radio stations have W's, X's, K's, and V's? Well, the first initial is dictated by the location. Like I just said a moment ago, most stations east of the Mississippi start with a W. Most stations west start with a K, but they also like X's because they sound cool. WABX, and then they go through phases. Q was a big one for a while. Y, Z, WLLZ, So, but you never know. And then Dave Phillips, ham or turkey? I tend to like turkey, but I also do like ham. Good old fashioned honey baked ham is always good as well. So, and Kotex Easta says, thank you, Steve, for helping me procrastinate Sunday housework. So I'm going to check out now. We've been on here now for 1 hour and 53 minutes and the mic worked. So there we go. And Ever in Transit 42 says Stacy's mom has got it going on. Yes, of course. So there you go. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you again next weekend. As always, same time, same place. Between now and then, 2 videos a day, 9 a.m. and noon. And by the way, one last thing I'm going to tell you is that tomorrow, Monday at 10 o'clock, another video of mine goes up on Ed Bolian's channel, VinWiki. I will post notices on Facebook, Twitter, and also on YouTube. I will share the video. So tomorrow, 2 of my videos, but one with Ed Bolian where I'm talking about Preston Tucker. So there you go. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.